Halloween was my favourite time of the year. Normally I would take my kids out to trick-or-treat from around 7:30 p.m. until 10 p.m. as usually they have school the next day. I should also mention that I'm a single mother of 2 boys, so it's pretty tough working, trying to make ends meet while raising 2 boys aged 6 and 8. Last Halloween I was really struggling financially, so I asked my mum and dad if they could pick up the kids and take them back to theirs to trick-or-treat. They lived about an hour away, not far from Lake Erie. They agreed and picked up my boys while I was getting ready to go to work for extra hours. I was expected to start work at 8 p.m. and this was around 6 p.m. I work at a pretty fancy restaurant but usually only do morning shifts. I hugged my boys and told them to have fun tonight with their grandparents. They looked sad, but I told them I had to work if they wanted their favourite snacks. Then they started to smile. Once they left, I was getting the shower ready and laying out my clothes for ironing. Just as I was about to get into the shower, the doorbell rang. I assumed it was a bit too early for trick-or-treaters, so I thought it might have been my boys. They usually forget things whenever we leave for school. I grabbed my robe and went downstairs towards the front door. The front door has 2 little windows so you can see people if they're at the door, but I couldn't see anyone. I called my mum and asked her if they came back to grab something. She said no, we are playing I Spy on the highway. I instantly got spooked, but brushed it off as a knock-knock dash. I go to review the footage from my Ring camera. A tall, skinny but not too skinny man, with a scream mask from the season version. But after he rang the door, I saw him move to the right side and open my garage door. Now I know he is in my house, but I froze, scared to even move an inch. I heard footsteps going up the stairs. He was literally walking right above me. I had about a 4-second sprint to get to the front door, but I decided to quietly tiptoe. I hear the bathroom door open and the sound of the shower got louder. Now he knows someone is in the house and I hear him running into my room, my kids' room and the closets. This was my chance to run, so I did. I got to the front door, making so much noise with my feet slapping the wooden floors. I was unlocking the door and just as I looked back, I see him, standing on the lower level of the staircase. The adrenaline was so intense I made this weird exhale noise and felt all of the air in my lungs rush out of my body. I open the door and he starts to sprint towards me. I ran towards my neighbour who I know has a gun while screaming as loud as I possibly could. More of a screech than a scream. I hear the sound of the man's heavy boots close to me, maybe about 9 yards behind me. Just as I was thinking to drop and trip him, my neighbour came out and ran past me, tackling the masked man. The gun was used once they were on the floor and the masked man was fatal. We didn't want to touch the body any more than my neighbour already had, so we called the police. This next bit is where the confusion and disgust ran through me. The police unmasked him and ID'd him as Doug Sawyer. He was my children's estranged father. To this day I've been trying to get answers from his mother, but she knows nothing, only that he just got out of the mental home after doing better with his schizophrenia. I thanked God that my boys weren't in the house. Since this happened, I have moved towns, not telling anyone where I live besides my parents. My kids always asked me about what their father was like, and now I'm going to have to tell them what happened when they're older. When I was a senior in high school, a bunch of my friends and I used to drive into the hills to drink and get away from our parents. I was the designated driver one Halloween night and drove back 4 of my friends. 2 of the girls were really drunk and started puking, so we pulled over in the park. Both of the girls started vomiting outside my car doors and this pickup rolled up behind us and had its high beams on us. I thought it was the cops and was just waiting for them to bust us, but the person in the car just stayed there. Eventually we closed the doors and drove away, but the pickup followed us. I started driving faster and through a neighbourhood I knew really well, taking every turn and starting to speed up, but the pickup kept following us. Eventually my friends needed to puke again and we pulled over. The pickup stopped behind us again and just kept its lights on us. I looked through my rearview mirror and saw an older white guy with a beard. He started reaching for something in his glove compartment. At that point, I freaked out, told my friends to pull my other friends in the car and floored it. We took a couple turns and lost the guy. We stayed in a driveway of a random person for like 15 minutes and then decided it was safe. We turned back onto the main street. The pickup was waiting for us. I drove as fast as I could down the main street and the pickup kept following us. Eventually, at the bottom of a hill, there was a massive accident and a bunch of police cars and fire trucks. I started to slow down like I was going to pull over towards the police. The pickup overtook us and ran a red light in front of the cops. My friends and I decided that was enough for one night and I got them home. Later that night, I got a message on MSN from one of the girls. It read, "Dude, did you see the registration plate of that pickup?" with about 6 question marks. I said I couldn't see because of the high beams. Then she replied, "There's a pickup outside in my cul-de-sac." I then video called her and asked her to put her laptop facing the pickup from her window. It was the same one. I called the police and gave them my friend's address. My friend, still on video call with me, said the pickup started to drive off. I asked her to try and see the registration plate, but it was tough. All we knew was the dark matte color. The police arrived about 6 minutes after and my friend hung up the video call. I was about to get ready to leave and drive to hers until I heard a vehicle pull up right outside my bedroom window. It wasn't the pickup, it was the marshal. He came to each neighborhood to warn everyone that a man has been stalking teens and has been doing it for the last 3 years on every Halloween. After that night, I never heard or saw of him again. Is he still out there? I hope not. I really hope he isn't. Me and my aunt used to throw a massive Halloween party every year. We would rent this building by a cemetery for creepy factor near our home. The last year we did it there, we had been at the building decorating for 2 days and it was about 3 in the morning. We had set up this owl by the front door that would hoot when someone walked by, so it was motion activated. We locked up the front door and went to close up the back as we were done for the night. There was a stage in this building that we would put the curtains up and make it a mad scientist lab up there. We were way into Halloween if you can't tell. My aunt and I went up onto the stage to turn everything off. All of a sudden we hear the front door that we just locked up open up and the owl makes a hoot sound. We were behind the curtain and couldn't see what it was. We stood there frozen in fear and staring wide-eyed at each other, not sure who just walked in. All of a sudden, a massive gust of wind blew the curtains towards us. I have never been so terrified in my life. I was sure we were going to die. All of the danger flags were going off. It got quiet for a while. We finally braved it and came down the stairs to peek out and see if anyone was there. There was no one. The front door was shut and still locked. We got out of there so fucking fast. We didn't book the party there again after that. For 18 years of my life, I stayed in the same childhood home without moving and slept in the exact same room. Over the years, strange things happened in this room, from your typical items falling off shelves down to sightings of figures swinging from nooses. The scariest thing to happen to me was when I was 18. I suffered from clinical depression and insomnia, which left me in a pretty bad shape for years, so perhaps take this story with a pinch of salt. My issue stemmed from something outside of my own control. My bed was small and had no underneath, as it was a wardrobe bed combo with the drawers you can pull out. A few days after I turned 18, I had gone to bed at about 3 a.m, pretty early for me. I decided to call my significant other, now fiancé, and sleep on the call for the night because I had this uneasy feeling. The room was unusually cold and bitter. I had left the window open, as I can't sleep when it's too hot. I was just about to fall asleep when something in my head set off. You know that typical something is seriously wrong kind of feeling? I heard this loud growl and rustling from the bottom of the bed. However, I didn't have time to react when these hands had grabbed my right leg and yanked me out of the bed and dragged me halfway across the floor. I screamed, freaking out my fiancé, who started shouting my name down the phone. By the time I could fully comprehend what happened, whatever pulled me out of my bed had vanished. But what was left behind was a large, deep gash in my stomach. I was rushed to hospital and admitted into the psych ward for 5 days for self-harm. I'm convinced it wasn't me. That's not even the creepiest part. When I returned home and went to my room, I found several marks around the room. The most notable were scratch marks in the curtains and along the windowsill, leading outside and onto the roof. But the experience drove me into a career focused on psychology, cultism, and supernatural experiences.